Welcome to the September edition of Shaker Life. I'm Cynthia Kyle. Well, the hot, dry summer of '88 is behind us, but what effect and impact did the drought have here on our suburban landscape? Shaker worker Pete Leone will comment on the effects the dry summer has had here. And if you've wondered what all the temporary water lines were doing above ground, we'll take you underground on some Shaker streets and show you just what is going on. In May of this year, 108 fish imported from China were deposited in 2 Shaker lakes. The fish are to feed on algae and aquatic plants that grow rampantly during the summer months. Rich Horton of the Shaker Lakes Regional Nature Center will discuss with us the success of that program. We'll see highlights of the Shaker Heights Mount Sinai run that took place right here in Shaker during August, and we'll hear from the League of Women Voters of Shaker Heights concerning your recent property reappraisals. Coming up next, we want you to meet our new Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Mark Freeman. As the new Superintendent of the Shaker Schools, what can the community expect from you in terms of your leadership style?
Studies have shown that visionary leaders are able to focus on the present and the future simultaneously, taking into account the past. And that's certainly how I will view major decisions here in the school district. I'll also view them through multiple lenses. The lenses of a parent, a school administrator, and a homeowner here in Shaker Heights.
What are some of your goals for the Shaker School District?
I've charted 3 goals for the school district as I assume the superintendency. The first is to foster the tradition of excellence in the Shaker Heights schools and in their physical facilities. The second is to maintain a focus on the classroom and on instruction. And the third is to continue to build public confidence for the schools in Shaker Heights.
Can the community expect to see any major changes in the upcoming school year?
Parents and staff members will be able to see some changes in the school district this fall, both in physical facilities and in instruction. We're doing some renovation of classroom space at Onaway Elementary School, Fernway Elementary School, Boulevard, and Mercer. Also, we're starting a new health curriculum that will be very important for boys and girls throughout the school district. We face many choices in our adult lives that deal with health, and I believe that this will be an excellent program. We are continuing our efforts in the whole language approach to reading instruction. The Shaker schools are on the cutting edge of this most important issue, the teaching of reading and writing at the younger grades and throughout the school district.
School reorganization is over. What is the status of the 4 elementary buildings that closed?
The Ludlow building has been leased to the Positive Education Program, and they are operating a program there for boys and girls with special needs, some right here in Shaker Heights and from area school districts. The Moorland School building has been turned over to the city for their Shaker Town Center redevelopment project. The Sussex building is used by the Shaker Recreation Department and various preschool programs operate in that school. And there's a committee studying the use of Malvern School, and it appears that they will recommend that that school building can be used for condominiums, maintaining its architectural integrity. And hopefully these will all be excellent uses for these buildings.
The Shaker residents have just received notice that their property taxes, for the most part, have all gone up. Will this create a windfall for the Shaker school system, and as a result of that, avoid the 1989 operating levy?
The major issue that faces the Shaker schools is that of school finance. In 1976, the Ohio legislature passed House Bill 920, which in essence rolled back real estate taxes in Shaker Heights. Because of this, as inflation goes up, the school district does not receive more revenue. Shaker is a beautiful community without commercial and industrial property. Because of this, the residents have to support the schools through the real estate tax. It is an absolutely bizarre and crazy funding formula. I saw recently in the paper the new nuclear power plant in Lake County was going to yield $69 million in property taxes, and the Perry school system with a $10 million budget was going to receive another $22 million each year. I think we all know that this is a funding formula that does not serve boys and girls across the state, and we need massive changes in the way schools are funded in Ohio. Because of this, the Shaker schools must constantly be on the ballot to receive money because of this tax structure. We have been able, through careful management, to break a 1 and 2 year levy cycle and move to 3 years between school levies. And the board, through careful management, as well as looking for every possible dollar of new revenue, will be in a position where we will not have to be on the ballot till 1989, or at least we won't have to consider being on the ballot until 1989. The board hasn't acted on that actual issue.
What long or short-term effects will the drought of '88 have on our suburban landscape? Peter Leone, the supervisor of Parks and Public Lands, and Rich Horton of the Shaker Lakes Regional Nature Center will explain.
The trees have been affected by the lack of snow in the last couple winters, and because of the lack of snow, it has not insulated the ground so that the freezing has been deeper, which has affected the root system. The combination of the last 2 winters have been very severe because of the lack of snow, and the freezing has been deeper. In combination of this spring, we had a heavy infestation of seeding. Trees have went into seeding, and normally you have the spring rains and the winds that would knock the seeds off before they really mature or develop. This year we had a very lack of rain and lack of wind, so most of the seeds developed and took all the energy away from the tree. And the combination of that plus lack of rain put most of our trees under stress, which has, if you drive the streets, you can tell where the residents have watered their trees by just looking up into the crown. They have survived, and they have made, the foliage has been developed to where it's supposed to be. But most of them have not. The leaves are very small because they didn't develop, because of the type of spring we had and the lack of rain. Now, we don't really know what the full extent of the damage will be until next spring. In fact, it'll be 2 or 3 years down the road yet until we really know how much damage has been done to the trees. You can tell the tree's been affected by the drought just by the appearance of it. It looks very droopy. The foliage has been very small. The leaves did not develop properly, and now at this time of the year, they're starting to drop early. Some of your softer maples, your red maple, your sugar maples, have lost their leaves in the last 2 or 3 weeks. They've just dropped off.
It's difficult to predict the long-term effects of this summer's drought on the plant and animal life here in the Heights area. The history of drought periods shows that usually they run in 2 to 3 year cycles, so that they would last that long. So this may be the beginning of such a cycle. We don't know yet. Or it just may be a fluke and be just one summer. We're hoping that that's the case. But in terms of this year's effect, we have seen such things as the early yellowing of leaves on the tree, the dying of grass where it's been mowed too closely and then the crowns have died out. We've also noted that the seed production in the trees, particularly the nut varieties, has been reduced significantly. This may have a major effect on the wildlife populations this winter as they go searching for food and are unable to find it. One example of the effect of the drought this year is the fact that the acorns that are being produced by our oak trees normally are very good size. This year they are very small in size and reduced in numbers, and this will mean there'll be less food for the squirrels and all the animals that eat those nuts over the course of the winter. We have also heard that on a national basis there has been a major effect on the waterfowl population. The hot summer suns actually cooked the eggs of many of our ducks and geese, and as a result the number of offspring produced is way down. So it may have a long-term effect on the population of those kinds of animals. In terms of our own plants here, we have seen the wilting of trees and the wilting of shrubs all summer long that we would not have expected. Hopefully the rains of the late summer have brought them back and they'll be able to survive. The other thing is that during your watering of outdoor plants and lawns, go to a trickle system rather than the high sprinklers. The sprinklers actually evaporate almost as fast as they put the water down because of their spraying into the air. So you want to go to a trickle system of irrigation where the water will penetrate into the soil and support the plants. For your trees in particular, it is important to do deep root watering. And here you can buy a wand or you can have a service come in and they will actually inject water into the ground where the roots are for the trees.
Shaker Heights has about 100 miles of cast iron water lines. Some of these lines are 75 years old and they're filled with rust and incrustations. Randy Duvall, director of the Shaker Service Department, explains the Shaker Waterline Cleaning Program.
The Shaker Heights Service Department has a major project in what's called cleaning and relining cast iron water lines. This project is a $1.1 million project and involves cleaning and relining 75-year-old cast iron water lines. The purpose of the project is to clean the rust and tuberculation off of the inside of the pipe. Tuberculation is big modules of rust that are located on the inside of the pipe. This will increase, when they clean the water line, they will then put a cement mortar lining on the inside of the pipe, and this will in essence restore the pipe to its original brand new condition. And in actuality it'll restore it to better than brand new, because the original 75-year-old pipe did not have a cement mortar lining on it. All new iron pipe does come with a cement lining. This lining will prohibit the growth of any additional tuberculation in the future. Thus, the 75-year-old pipe, the life will be extended another 50 years. In order to clean and reline these mains, the contractor has got to take them out of service. We cannot let our residents go without water, so the lines that are above ground are temporary water lines, and these lines are serving all of the residents along the way. The contractor, once he takes the water line out of service, will cut a piece of pipe out at two ends. He will then run what they call a pig or a scraper through the pipe several times to clean off all of the tuberculation off of the pipe. Once the pipe is cleaned, he will then take a cement mortar mixture and pump it into a hose and into a centrifugally spun device that spins the cement mortar onto the inside of the pipe. This mortar has a thickness of about 3/16 of an inch. When he's done with that, he will then put the pipe back together, the two pieces he cut out. They will then put water in it, they will test it, disinfect it to make sure it's certified for drinking again, and place the line back in service. This process of cleaning and relining is actually easier than replacing the pipe in its entirety. It's also much more cost-effective to do this. The average lifespan of a pipe is 50 years, and this process will extend the life of the existing pipe 50 years. When the project is completed, residents should notice a substantial difference in water pressure. They may even notice a difference in purity if they've been suffering from red water problems, which is caused by the old tuberculation in the water lines. More importantly, the major benefit of this whole project is the increase in pressures available for fighting fires. The fire department will have more water, in essence, to work with, should there be the need to fight a fire.
Coming up next, the League of Women Voters of Shaker Heights.
Today I am talking with Chris Flint, who is chairing a lead committee who's looking into the city's budget. We know that recent property reappraisals has given $840,000 in additional revenues to the city. Chris, where is the city getting the extra money?
Well, Ruthie, every 6 years, the county reappraises all property in the entire county. As a result of additional property valuations, the city is receiving, as you say, this additional $840,000. This amount will be part of the city budget starting in 1989. The schools will receive an additional $360,000 as a result of this reappraisal. This amount of money, these two figures to the two governing bodies in Shaker Heights, will remain the same for the next 6 years, at which time there will be another property reappraisal.
Well, how does the city get its money, Chris, as compared to how the schools get theirs?
The city, for example, receives a minor part of its total revenues through property taxes. The main source of revenue for the city in their almost $19 million budget comes from the city income tax. That income tax rate is 1.75% and is paid by all residents who earn a living. And it generates about $10.5 million for the city. That amount is about 57% of the city budget. The income tax, the real estate taxes, property taxes, generate about $3 million. And two lesser sources of revenue are estate taxes. That figure necessarily is unknown, but is usually around $500,000. And the fourth source of revenue that needs to be considered is interest income. This is money the city earns on its investments or its cash balances that it has that it does not need at the moment. The schools, on the other hand, receive 71% of their revenues through property taxes and additional sources of revenue from other places, for example, state support for education.
Well, Chris, at this point, where is your committee going with this information, and how would you apply it?
We expect to take a look at the city balance sheets or budgets in similar cities in the area. We will look at Rocky River and Bay Village, for example, because they are also what we might consider bedroom communities with not a very significant industrial tax base. We will also look at Cleveland Heights, although it is larger, has a similar school system and some other similar city services. We will make budget comparisons with those three particularly. We will take a look at city surpluses and all the sources of revenue a city has with an eye to considering adjustments that might be made in revenues to provide some sort of tax break for residents.
Well, thank you, Chris. This is Ruthie Brown for Shaker Life.
There's a fish from China called the white Amur that loves to eat weeds. That's good news for us because it will mean that the Shaker will be able to control the plant life and vegetation growth in the Shaker Lakes without adding chemicals to the water to do the job. Here's Rich Horton to explain.
The white Amur fish has been introduced into the Shaker Lake system because of the rampant vegetation growth that we find in our lakes that have been built here back in the 1800s. Like most urban watersheds, this particular body of water receives a great deal of fertilizer that comes in via the runoff from people's lawns and also from the fact that we have 2 golf courses that are in the watershed. And naturally, both the golf courses and the homes use a great deal of fertilizer on their lawns. This fertilizer complements and actually adds to the natural fertilizer that comes into the system, things like decaying leaves that wash down into the lakes. With all this fertilizer, when the sun penetrates the water in the spring, the plants start to grow like crazy, and that's exactly what's happened. The white Amur fish is an attempt by the cities of Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights and the Nature Center to introduce a biological control on the rampant weed growth. We have tried a variety of chemicals in the past, not with great success, and also with the concern that these chemicals are quite toxic, and we don't want to add more toxic materials to the watershed if we can help it. The white Amur is a fish that is originally from the White Amur River that separates China and Russia, and was introduced into this country some 25 or 30 years ago by the U.S. government to try and do research on whether this could be a good biological control. It was made legal in Ohio last September and was introduced, of course, here in April. Whenever a non-native species of fish is introduced into a body of water or into any kind of a habitat, there is concern that the non-native species might destroy the native species or the native species habitat. So in the case of the white Amur, the state of Ohio said that they could only introduce the sterile form of the fish because there was a great deal of concern that if the fish got into the Great Lakes, that they would destroy very badly needed wetlands habitat. This wetland habitat is for nesting waterfowl as well as providing food sources for many of the fish that are so popular in the Great Lakes. The sterilization process is done in several ways, but probably either chemically or through radiation. They actually have a process to add a chromosome or cause an additional chromosome to form in the fish, which prevents them from reproducing. It's important to understand that any body of water goes through a natural cycle, or not actually a cycle, but a process of change over the life of that body of water. The lakes that are here in Shaker were built in the 1800s by the Shakers. The natural process of sedimentation, where sediments wash down the streams and then are deposited into the bottom of the lake, will result in the lakes becoming shallower and shallower. You add to that a great deal of plant growth in the lake. As those plants die, they add their remains to the bottom, and that increases the rate at which the body of water becomes more shallow. Eventually, the whole lake will become a marsh, and then from a marsh it will go to a swamp forest, and from a swamp forest it will eventually become a forest all by itself. That's called ecological succession in a body of water. So we want to keep the vegetation from growing too rapidly to slow down this process of succession and allow the lakes to be enjoyed for many, many years to come. But we have to remember that the fish were first introduced into the lake in late May. It is now August. We had talked with the hatchery people, and they said that we would probably not see any major results or effects of the fish until September or October. I even became more doubtful of that when we had this long, hot summer with the sun beating down the water temperature rising quickly, all of which are conditions that lead to very rapid plant growth. In the past, by this time in the year, by August, you would expect to see a mat of green vegetation growing 2/3 to 3/4 the way across the lake from this particular point. As you can see, that has not developed. And in fact, the only vegetation we have that's emerging from the water is along the shorelines themselves, and that is quite desirable. So we are very pleased to have this kind of an effect so early in the game.
This August, the city of Shaker Heights and Mount Sinai Hospital joined forces for the third year to sponsor the 5-mile run through the city of Shaker Heights. The race started and ended at Sotheby Park and included a magnificent breakfast offered to all the participants. Now, if you're a competitive runner looking for one more fair weather competition, you can sign up for the Great Human Race on Saturday, October 2nd. The Great Human Race will benefit the Shaker Heights Youth Center and begin and end at Shaker Heights High School. This is a race for all ages, for runners and walkers alike. School and corporate teams are especially welcome, and T-shirts will be given to the first 400 entrants. Trophies will be awarded in many categories, and an after-race pancake breakfast by the American Field Service will conclude the event. Thank you. you for joining us for this edition of Shaker Life. We hope you'll join us every Wednesday at 2:30, 8:30, and 11:30 p.m. right here on Channel 34. This is Cynthia Kyle for Shaker Life.